Oga Baba, if I give you stable electricity, you don't need to run this gen, you don't need to buy fuel, and this haircut where they cut at maybe 4,000 naira because of the fuel, maybe you do it at 2,000 naira. How much energy does Nigeria truly need? It's debatable, but at the minimum, we are thinking 60,000 megawatts. That's almost 5 times the scale that we're doing today. If I was to say anything to him, I would say, don't try to change the policies. Don't try to change the laws. Those things already work. Your priority is execution, and we'll have a transformed Nigerian power sector.
Nigeria has a population of over 200 million people, but can barely provide power to even half a quarter of this population. Imagine the productivity that would have harnessed if we had sufficient power. So to provide solution to this challenge, we were having a discussion with one of the industry stakeholders. I mean, he's a very interesting personality. But I'm not doing this alone. I'm here with my co-host, Abubakar Ibrahim.
It's good to be here, Dave. My name is Abubakar Ibrahim, like you said, an energy reporter and correspondent.
Thank you for that, Ibrahim. To solve this power challenge in Nigeria, one of the main resources of one of the really, really important infrastructure is capital. Not just capital, patient capital. And we have here one of the players in this industry who will be talking to us about what we need to do, resources we can leverage to get the desired results. And to do that is Uchenna Mparo, the Chief Investment Officer from United Capital Infrastructure Fund. Recently, they just signed a deal with the Fenchurch and Lagos State government. A lot of things happened behind the scene, and Uchenna is here to tell us how that unveiled of what happened. Welcome on the show, Uchenna. It's good to have you. So just before we, dive straight into it, I want our audience to meet you, know you, and know the role that you played, and United Capital played in the recent IPP sign between the Lagos State government and Fenchurch.
Thank you, David. It is fantastic to be here. My name is Uchenna Mparo, Chief Investment Officer for the United Capital Infrastructure Fund. United Capital Infrastructure Fund is a local currency fund providing long-term capital to infrastructure. Our interests cut across power, renewable energy, agribusiness, telecoms, gas, and several other infrastructure areas.
When we're talking about capital, is there like a limit, a floor, or a ceiling? Is there an amount too small, or is there an amount too big? Let me put it that way.
For us at United Capital, there's no transaction that is too big. We look at everything. We try to structure the transaction, and where there is a viable solution, then we go ahead and execute it. Now, execution for us could be that we will do all the investments primarily through our investing vehicle, the United Capital Infrastructure Fund. But in other instances, it might mean that we have investing partners come on board to join us to also participate in a deal where that happens.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Before forge ahead, one of the things we promise our viewers is that you're going to tell us how you backed Fenchurch in the current IPP that they just signed with the Lagos State government, and why did you do that?
Okay. So it was clear that there was a real opportunity. We all know that Lagos State has announced a 400 megawatts generation capacity ambition. But that ambition was only announced a few weeks ago. Long before that, if you just reflect on it, we continue to have power outages. There's continuously conversations about load shedding. And so once the opportunity was identified that there was this asset owned by Lagos State, Akute IPP, had been decommissioned for over 2 years, it was clear there was an opportunity. Now, the state government then said, look, we want to revitalize this plant, bring it back on stream, and get the right partner, private partner, to come in, bring in the investments, bring in the expertise, and take this plant from a near comatose stage to a highly producing, valuable asset. And our work was cut out for us. When we had the earliest conversations with the Fenchurch Group, whom we know because we have invested in them in a different power plant in Akute State, and that was the starting point of all the conversations, was how do we work and deliver the same solution? Now, this project was different. It was different because there was an existing asset. And so where there's an existing asset, you have to think about how do you value this asset? How do you structure this deal? The asset was installed in a community, so there are community considerations. The asset is also supposed to provide dedicated power to two waterworks in the state. So again, there were conversations about how do you establish what their energy demand is and what their future energy demand would look like, such that you can size the systems. And then Lagos State government, whilst we were doing all of this, Lagos State government was saying, well, this is a PPP, so it has to go through our PPP laws and regulations. So amongst other things, they were putting together the PPP tender documents, they were sending it out. It was a competitive process. We emerged from that process. The consortium that we were in emerged from that process as the preferred bidder. Then we went into lengthy negotiations to try and agree the most viable terms. Now, I would give a lot of credit to something that Lagos State government did very early on. They surrounded themselves with the right kinds of advisors, very leading, very experienced advisors, so they could help us and help the state navigate the nuance of getting a good concession agreement done.
I spoke with Mr. Femi Bakare, that's the CEO of Fenchurch, about this. When I asked him about the partners, the first partner I mentioned was United Capital. So why United Capital? What makes United Capital so special above competitors?
It's because we co-create. At every opportunity, it's not an adversarial conversation between us and financier and you as technical partner. It's a conversation about what does value look like on your side of the fence as a technical guy. What do you need us as finance people to help with? And how do we then marry those two? And that process of co-creating always yields a more comprehensive outcome. So if you're saying, well, we need this sort of commercial terms, and we are saying we need this sort of transaction securities, we can blend that into a solution. We've worked very well with Fenchurch. We've supported them in one deal that is now actively being in the process of looking at an expansion of that plant. And so that goodwill continues to exist.
If you don't mind me asking, because again, we're talking about Lagos State and the power sector. I reported one time that Lagos State was spending over 14 trillion naira on petrol generator, to power their businesses and homes. But before we venture into that deeply, I would like to know your role at United Capital, how you play in that sector, and also just give us a little bit background of the infrastructure funding that you've done over the years.
Thank you. So United Capital, as you probably know, is a Pan-African financial services group. What that means is that we're playing across not just Nigeria, but we're in Ghana, we're in Sierra Leone, we're registered to operate in 8 Francophone countries, we're opening another office in Eastern Africa. And so our bread and butter is how do we deliver financial services across capital raising, investment banking, asset management. Now, more recently, I would say about 4.5 years ago, we ventured into setting up an infrastructure fund. The question was why? And the real answer was we found that we were always finding ourselves advising clients on how to design a deal, how to structure a deal. And we said, why don't we bring that expertise and launch a fund and also open it to other investors who want to put money into that fund to co-invest alongside us. And that set us up to launch the United Capital Infrastructure Fund. Today, the fund has now invested in industrial recycling. It has invested in power, as we're about to talk about. Yeah. It also has investments in renewable energy. We do have a strong pipeline of deals now in gas, agribusiness, and telecoms as well. All of our investments to date have primarily been deployed in Nigeria, but increasingly, we are now looking at the Pan-African outlook again because United Capital has a Pan-African footprint. We are now looking to expand our outlook into Pan-African activities.
Okay, so that then will mean that you're not just playing locally, you're playing across board on the continent.
That's our goal, yes.
All right.
Let me just chip this in. Nigeria's power sector is one of the really, really volatile industry that a lot of players even want to venture into because there is no guarantee or there's no assurance. It was the low-hanging fruit that motivated United Capital to play in that space. in Nigeria?
So you've described the system of what is happening on the grid. A lot of our power is generated, put on the grid, and then transmitted from the grid to homes. And you found that there were all sorts of bottlenecks. The government is working to sort those out, but it takes time. Now, over the last decade or so, there has been a lot more activity for off-grid or embedded grid transactions. So when you think a captive power plant, you think an embedded power plant, those kinds of transactions are actively happening without reliance on governments to pay for something or a third-party transmitter to carry your power. What that means is, as a project developer, you have it within your capacity to generate, to transmit, and to distribute, to also collect your revenues. That sort of end-to-end system is what is now catalyzing a lot more capital. And so we now have players who have been developing power plants, power assets for up to a decade. They've built experience, they've built capacity. The market is now ripe. Fenchurch is one of those players, and that's why we're supporting that transaction.
So I'll stay with you on that because right here I'm looking at an information that says that United Capital's Infrastructure Fund has a 150 billion naira program size and has delivered 24.62% gross return in full year last year, 2025, and has also distributed a cumulative 6.19 billion naira to unit holders since inception.
Correct.
So how much of that has gone directly into power and energy projects? And is the Fenchurch the biggest single energy belt you've made so far?
Okay. So your question has two bits to it.
Yes.
Because this is, incidentally, it's not our first transaction with Fenchurch. Our very first transaction with Fenchurch was in 2024, where we financed a power plant in Akute State. That power plant has been running, it's had about 99% uptime. It's doing very well. Indeed, we're even talking about an expansion. And so this represents our second deal with Fenchurch.
Okay.
Now, beyond the Ekiti deal, which we did in 2024, we also, and for us, it's an end-to-end power play, right? So we're not only saying we will support independent power plants. If it's energy, we will do it. Provided we can structure it right, we will do it. So the power play in 2024, we did a renewable energy transaction. In 2025, cumulatively, we've now deployed about 9 billion or committed about 9 billion in energy space. Now, the deal with Fenchurch that was signed with Lagos State, 26 megawatts, 30 billion is the expected outlay for that. That is easily the singular largest transaction, which I'm sure begs the question, you're wondering, why?
Yeah.
Why are we doing that deal? Lagos State has said, listen, we want to do 400 megawatts. That's Lagos State's ambition. And if you think about Lagos, Lagos is the commercial nervous center of Nigeria. Business, industry, commerce, trade, activities. And so if you think 400 megawatts, you think 400 megawatts of productive energy. 400 megawatts of energy that users can actually pay for. And if I'm producing something that you can pay for, then it's good business. And so we have said we will do this. Now, that power plant will represent about 5% of Lagos State's initial demand, but the goal is to scale it. It is our goal to finance projects such that as a financier, we're supporting a minimum of 30% of that demand.
Okay.
So let me just still pick on that. Speaking with some of the CEOs in this industry, I learned that one of the things that they really need is what we call patient capital. That is, you won't fund the project today and then next few months or next year, you're already knocking on your door. So I want to ask, how patient is UCIF's capital?
So you asked the right question because indeed, if you are funding an asset that has a lifespan of 30, 40 years, you also want to financing that gives you that sort of long-term tenor. We've done deals that are 7 years, we've done deals that are 10 years. Now, over a 10-year period, this power plant will more than repay itself. And so the idea behind patient capital doesn't mean capital that does not generate a good return. It just means that it's capital that you can stretch over a longer period of time, and then it ultimately delivers the benefit of that asset that it's trying to finance.
Okay.
Sorry, just a follow up to that. I know there are a lot of players or there are a lot of companies, firms watching this right now who watch this. And one of the questions that will come to their mind would be, how can they participate? So, but I want to ask, what does United Capital or UCIF, what do you look at before you put your money behind a particular project?
Each project is different. Each project is unique. Each sector is unique. But they are recurring decimals for a good investment. The first starting point is what is the capacity of the company or the project developer that is looking to develop it. They have to have the capacity, they have to have the experience, they have to have the commitment and will. And you can always test commitment and will by how much they are investing themselves into the project. They have to have the integrity. And so those are the starting building blocks. Now, once you appraise a project through the lens of who's delivering this and do they have the capacity, the next set of questions are what are the economics of it? Every project is like buying and selling, you know. How much am I buying at, which is how much is the cost of delivering this project, versus how much am I selling at, which is how much will I sell to be able to recover my investment. And so you have to look at those parameters very closely. Lastly, you then need to look at the ecosystem within which that project is happening. And so if you're delivering a project and there are linkages to other projects, you have to be testing what are the risks, what is the interconnection challenge, and what are the ways I secure and protect my capital. That security and protection of capital is paramount, absolutely paramount for us to proceed with an investment.
Okay, so thank you very much. So far, you've made some, enlightenments. You've made some things known to us. I'm sure our viewers too will also probably get to know some new things. And I'm glad you mentioned challenge. In as much as we're talking about Fenchurch, Lagos State, and also you investing in this sector, there are so many things that might probably might have looked like as a fund and like no, this is a problem, or there are some problem or challenge that you didn't see before venturing, and you're like, oh,
Exactly.
what is going on here? So I'm sure you cannot tell us that it's all rosy. So could you just give us some instances where you've had challenges, and what are the major challenges on all of the projects that you've embarked on?
That's a fantastic question. So, there are two types of challenges. There are good challenges, and then there are terrible challenges. One of our earliest investments, which we did in 2022, at the time we were designing the financing for that project, we had projections around what we thought exchange rates will be.
Okay, could have been for me.
And so at the time, we thought that the exchange rate, which was, there was a parallel market and the official rate, and that was hovering between 450 and 700. That's what that window was. And so in all our modeling and all the pessimism you would apply, you would still keep it somewhere within a 10 to 20% window. But then devaluation happened. And everything, you would think, oh, wow, that's a nightmare, because you went from 450 to 1,000, 1,001, 1,002, 1,005,
Yeah.
But for us, it was a great challenge to have. Why? Because the project we were investing in is an exporter. So he was exporting products, meaning that all his revenues was coming back in dollars. And then when he changed it back to Naira, the revenue, the returns went through the roof. So that's a great challenge, right? It's not something that some of your viewers would like to hear, that there was a positive implication of devaluation, but it was a great experience for us. Now, why did we do that deal? Fundamentally, a lot of it was because it was an export deal. So even in the selection of the deals that we're doing, we try to think what can potentially go wrong, and if it does go wrong, how can it come back to harm us? So far, we have zero non-performing loans. All our investments are doing very well. Again, it speaks to the level of rigor that goes into it. It's not luck, but the extent of where you might say is luck is if we're not picking the right people to deliver these deals with. And in that regard, our due diligence is very, very extensive.
Dave, so far, what do you think? Do you have any question?
Yes, still on that zero non-performing loans. I mean, when you look at the other financiers, that's the banking industry, especially in Nigeria, when you hear their non-performing loans, you tend to think that is there anything left for the shareholders, or is there anything left for, as dividends for shareholders in the company? But how have you done it in an economy that swallows capital? So what are the metrics, or what are the safety net that you've, put or lay down there?
Well, in truth, the banking sector is usually the leading financial institution, and they determine rules around credit, how you appraise and access credit. So what we did in coming into the space was really, really to learn from them. So we spent a lot of time looking at deals that banks had done, asking ourselves what could have gone wrong. And what that also means for us as a fund is you have to get to a point where you know it's part of your investing process that you cannot structure away a bad deal. That sometimes a deal is so bad that no matter all the structures you put around it to ring fence it, that something will, in all likelihood, go wrong. And so, when you get to that point, you have to be able to walk away. That's where superior governance comes in. That's where an experienced team that's appraising this transaction comes in. And so that has really, really helped us. That we've taken the time to learn, but there's always a point where we say, we've looked at everything. We thank you for your time, but unfortunately, we cannot progress.
So I just had a follow up on that. Now that you already know how to go about it, how to safeguard yourself, how to protect yourself, is there a limit to what United Capital can offer players in the industry? Like, is there a limit to the capital? Maybe how much you can go?
I will say this. The Fenchurch deal is 26 megawatts. That's about 5% of Lagos State's demand. It is our goal to get to 25% of Lagos State's demand in 2 years. So that's 100 megawatts. That's our target. Now, the way we've designed and structured that Fenchurch deal, the lights come on in 9 months. So in 9 months' time, we have a demonstrable track record of something that we've set out to do, and it's actually working. It's actually working. And then from there, we just replicate the same structures. And so for us, a big part of our deal selection process, when we're doing the very early screening of a deal, there is a line item that says, can this deal and this structure be replicated for other transactions? And when we check that box and say yes, it means we now have a model to do over and over, which shortens our timeline to market.
All right. So you said we when you're talking about 100 megawatts. So I want to ask, we United Capital, or we United Capital and Fenchurch, or we United Capital, Fenchurch, and the Energy Time?
Well, very good question. And who does we mean, right?
Yeah.
For us at United Capital, we're a financial partner. And what that means is that our job is to provide and mobilize the capital that is needed to invest in these sectors. It also means that we need to meet with the right partners, like we're doing with Fenchurch, but beyond Fenchurch, there are several other partners that we're actively working with across the power value chain, in power, in renewable energy, and in gas as well. It also means that we need to partner with people like yourself who are helping shape and craft the narrative. Now, when we think about what we want to do, it's beyond the story of we want to do 100 megawatts. We want to improve energy access. It's an energy access objective. And what does that mean? If you think about Algeria has 6,000 megawatts. That's the total capacity, but 100% of the population has power. Morocco, 12,000 megawatts, but 100% of the population has power. And Nigeria with 13,000
yeah.
15,000.
200 million people. So the question is, how much energy does Nigeria truly need? It's debatable, but at the minimum, we are thinking 60,000 megawatts. That's almost 5 times the scale that we're doing today. And so our goal is to work with the right partners to deliver a number of projects, but also to standardize how transactions can be done. Because once there's a standard template, then it's faster to do.
Okay. All right. So I'll follow up on that. Then I'll be talking as a typical or an average Nigerian on the streets. So all this thing where you talk now, how it dey affect me, how it dey bring lights to come my house. Yeah. So because again, we can sit here, then we can talk about projects, and then but how does it help that barber? How does it help that guy? Using electricity to power his sewing machine, and taking the Fenchurch Akute Power Plant project as a case study.
Okay. And that is such a great case study. Um, that power plant, two of its anchor loads, that's two of the people the power plant will give energy to, are waterworks in Lagos. So when the lights go on from that power plant, water supply in Akute, Iju, and Adiyon areas will improve tremendously. So a guy on the street knows he will get better water, right?
Yeah.
But beyond that, when there is more energy, and a lot of that energy is being used for commercial and industrial purposes, when there is more energy, there's more productive activity. And just think about yourself. If you're more productive, you earn more. It means that all the people that are reliant on you, your driver, your cleaner, your cook, even your children's school fees,
Yeah.
you are able to pay more. And so power, and we always talk about this, is the bedrock of the society. It powers economic growth and development. And so there's a direct correlation. It's not a hard message to say, Oga Baba, if I give you electricity, stable electricity, you don't need to run this gen, you don't need to buy fuel. And this haircut where they cut at maybe 4,000 naira because of the gen, maybe you do it at 2,000 naira.
Yeah.
That gives you more customers. So that's the message.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I want to, take it up a notch. We have a new minister for power in Nigeria now. And so, although it's still trendy, we are yet to get to the roots or to the truth. He said within 100 days, 3 months, we'll see a turnaround. So, how feasible is that? And if you could have a one on one with him, what would you say should focus on so that at least we don't have that power grid collapse? Or was it what they invented?
Over time, we've had power grid collapse, then we've had disturbance, grid disturbance, then load shedding, and all of that.
Yeah. So he's the minister. He sees what's in the pipeline much, much better. And it's very likely that so much has been going on. And so he can take that call from that position of being highly informed. Now, if you think about what's happening, 36 states, everyone has pretty much been liberalized now. So there's so many projects in the pipeline at various stages. There's an expectation that as these projects come on stream, you will see rapid improvements. If I was to say anything to him, I would say, don't try to change the policies. Don't try to change the laws. Those things already work. Your priority is execution. Bringing the parties together. So private sector, what is the bottleneck you're facing? How do we unlock it? This regulator, what is the bottleneck you're facing? How do we unlock it? This governor, we see that you're slightly behind. What is the challenge you're facing? How do we unlock it? Just stay the course, but focus on execution, and we'll have a transformed Nigerian power sector.
So just before we leave that area, I want to come down from the minister now to the states. There are 36 states in Nigeria, and you've played in two. So what are these? Guys, what is giving you that confidence that any states we enter will find solution to their challenge? No matter how we deliver.
It's a tricky question because again, if you remember, one of the things I said is that sometimes you can't structure away a bad deal.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of any state we enter will find a solution. It's any state we enter there with seriousness and commitment. And if the building blocks are there, we'll certainly build. We'll build not even a hut, we'll build a mansion, we'll build power but all the elements have to be there. Now, we won't go into any state without the right partners. So everywhere we're going into, technical capacity will be there, the political will be there, the enabling environment will be there. And once we get in there, then it's a straightforward conversation about, we have done this in Lagos. Here is how we did it. This is the template. We've done it in Ekiti State. Here is how we did it. This is the template. So which of these two templates is easier for you to execute? It's a more straightforward conversation.
Okay. So just as we are wrapping this up, I want to also, address this elephant in the room. Presently, Ibrahim can testify there's almost nobody here that's not thinking of getting solar. Because I mean, these power has not been dependable for a while, and you still have to get the job done. Nobody will wait for that excuse. There was a day that I was on a call with one of my friends from South Africa, and she was like, "Is it raining?" I said, "No." She said, "What is making that noise?" I said, "It's a generator." I was like, "Generator? What is that?"
Slightly about
I had to like do a video call to show her what the generator looks like.
right.
So, but that's just that. What I want to talk about is United Capital playing in the renewables as well.
We're an energy player. What that means is that we'll do your IPPs, but yes, renewable energy as well. Last year we announced a deal with horsepower to do 2.5 megawatts of off-grid systems, entirely solar generated. And when you asked and when you alluded to solar, I don't see anything wrong with solar. If we're saying our generation capacity is 13 and we want to get to 60,000, we have to imagine that there will be a basket of solutions inside that journey. So solar will take a share naturally. They don't crowd out each other. Now, why we did that renewable energy deal is because we found out that there was a real opportunity to deploy capital, deliver systems, and earn a stable, predictable return that had been de-risked. We picked a partner, very experienced. They've been doing this for about 12 years. And they're not just doing it on the African continent, they're also doing it in Asia. Okay. And so we picked the right kind of partner and all that. But beyond that partner, there are so many other players who are now emerging in that solar space as well. So solar, I expect, will continue to play a very big conversation. Indeed, Nigeria is leading across Africa in terms of the strength of our regulations and our policies on the solar space. And so it's unsurprising that you are now hearing a lot more about solar in terms of the actual asset delivery and execution. Those things will happen.
Over the weekend, there was this trendy, news online. It was a bit disturbing, and there's also an element of truth to it, and that is about capable lands. Now, one of the CEOs said it is very tough to get capable lands in Nigeria. I believe you know where I'm going to. So it's almost impossible, being a global company that they have to now look for expatriate. There's some other persons come and said, oh no, they can't even actually pay global wage. But that's not the focus. So you've mentioned a lot of partners, you've mentioned a lot of players, even within United Capital itself. So how did you see the human capital or the human efforts, the human will behind all of this? Do you also now have to source from your players in other markets, or you go local and move global?
Okay. So anybody who says it's tough to get capable hands in Nigeria is giving maybe a small part of the story. It's a global challenge. All across the world is the reason why people continue to leave the country, because other countries are opening up their borders to say we want semi-skilled, skilled employees. If they had the capable hands, they wouldn't be doing that. So it's a global challenge that a skilled workforce is in short supply. What has caused this challenge, in my opinion, and it's not a United Capital opinion, it's in my opinion, the world has moved quickly. You've had a population that has aged and moved out of the workforce, and the younger population, very quickly, they're having to step in. It means that businesses that continue to invest and reinvest in their people, like United Capital, we have fantastic development programs, fantastic. It means that businesses that continue to do that will stay ahead. The truth is you can buy so much, but you cannot buy everything. Big portion of it, you have to deliver it within your own business. And so that's kind of how we are looking at it, that yes, when we need to have partners join us or when we need to recruit new members into our team, but taking a crop of people, building capacity in them and having them do the work is our strategy.
Well, you are Nigerian, and I want to believe you are a capable one. So, I mean, so that's.
You did ask me something, and I just remembered. You asked me, how do people get to participate in United Capital Infrastructure Fund? And it was a very good question, because the more I talk about it, the more perhaps your audience will say, oh, well, this is a fantastic opportunity, but I wish it was open to the public. It is indeed open to the public because the way we designed the fund was we as United Capital would put in capital, but we would also throw an offer open to say other people who have a like mind, come bring your capital in, and then we deploy it into these projects and you earn this good return. So when we're talking about 24.62% for 2025, it wasn't just United Capital that enjoyed that. We had a number of HNI investors, we had the private investors, we had institutional investors also benefiting from such a return.
David, you heard that you probably have to go bring your savings.
Okay, this should be the last question. I want us to go to tomorrow now, to go into the future. Of course, Ekiti State was a good pointer to the expertise of United Capital and to the fact that you can deliver. Now, on the next 5 years, on the next 10 years, when you look back at this Akute IPP, what do you want to see?
It's a good question. The only way I would tweak my response is to say we don't want to be talking about 5 years. We want to be talking about 12 months. In 12 months, we want to be able to say we have delivered phase 1. It is on. It is working. Then we then make the point that as we're doing phase 2, we can do more for you, Lagos State. And in doing that, we're now signaling to other states who want to do power projects that there's a structure, there's a model, and there's an entity that can deliver this working with you. The goal, I said 24 months, we want to be able to say 100 megawatts financed by United Capital. But beyond that 100 megawatts financed by us, we also want to be able to say an additional 400, 500 megawatts has been financed by other players using the same structures we designed. That's the real catalytic effect.
I like this because this is going online and we will be able to hold you to your word, to be able to hold you accountable. So, I mean,
You know my work now. As I press neck.
That's it. That's fantastic.
So it's so good to have you enlighten us, explain some things that even the both of us do not understand, and I'm sure many other people out there will be watching this later on do not understand and they get to know better now. And we hope that when we call on you next time, you'll be here for us, and probably in the next couple of months, 24 months, we'll say, okay, we've done 100 plus, now we're targeting 500 and more.
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. So, David, do you have any last word?
it will be for him first. But what I would say is the other governors in Nigeria, I mean, counting out Ekiti State and Lagos State, United Capital has showed you what can work. So it's just to, set up a meeting, have a conversation, and please let's provide Nigerians with light. President Tinubu has done his part by, giving states the autonomy or the power to also own power generation in their state. But if you don't want to start from ground zero, we have what works already. Nigerians are virtually Nigerians everywhere. You can just copy and paste, adjust, remove, edit. But please, let's do our best to provide Nigerians power. So over to you now, Mr. Uchenna. What parting words do you have for investors, for the political office holders, and for Nigerians as well? That yes, it's going to get better.
Nigerian power sector has made a lot of giant strides in the last decade and a half. At United Capital, we understand how those strides translate to bankable projects. We're able to structure them, we're able to invest in them because we have the capital and the expertise, and we're able to crowd in additional capital in the ecosystem. To our investors, the power sector has grown. It's no longer one where you need to be worried. If you have the right partner like us working with you, you can make a lot of money and go to bed sleeping, not just enjoying your money, but enjoying the air conditioning because you have light. So we'll be happy to work with everyone who's open to working with us.
All right. Thank you very much.